Who's ready for a day of Shakespeare, musical theater, and swans? I know I am. Today we're taking another Teacup Road Trip to Stratford, Ontario. Welcome to Teacup for One. My name is Matt and I have 2 degrees. And look, I'm driving. I'm not driving. We are about to depart for a day-long adventure in like one of my favorite places in the world. Like after, of course, Disney World, New York City. Yeah, I'd say maybe my third favorite place in the world after Disney World in New York City. So we are going to Stratford, Ontario. This is a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, Ontario, but it has one of the biggest, if not the biggest, repertory theater companies in North America. It is some of the greatest theater that you can see anywhere in the world. They haven't returned my calls or let me audition for them ever since graduating from acting school, but even though they don't love me, I still love them. So today I'm going to go see Hamlet as well as Chicago, and we're going to take a tour around some of my favorite spots in the town. But first, I have to drive for an hour and a half. Let's go. Stratford, Ontario was originally named after Stratford upon Avon, aka the birthplace of William Shakespeare. The town began to grow in the 1850s as a railway town, but by the 1950s the railway industry was dying out. So, in an effort to keep the city's economy going, journalist Tom Patterson came up with the idea of starting a theater festival dedicated to Shakespeare. I'm guessing because the city was already called Stratford. The first season opened in 1953 with a production of Richard III starring Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's true, look it up.
Hello there.
And the performance took place on a beautifully constructed thrust stage housed under a giant tent. Now for the first few seasons, the festival operated under the tent, but after season 5, they eventually built a theater around the stage, and that was the start of the amazing festival theater that we're going to visit today. But first, every trip to Stratford is required by law of Matt to start with a visit to Shakespeare pies. Yep, that's its name, and yes, they're incredible.
There's apple cider.
It's good. It's if you like apple and if you like cider, you will like this. All right, we have just successfully visited Shakespeare Pies. I've secured a pie, I've secured a tray of butter tarts, a loaf of bread, and a delicious pretzel. So we're gonna give this the taste test right now. If you like pretzels, you will like this. And we have arrived. Now, best kept secret when visiting the Stratford Festival, I give you the Cooper parking lot. Free parking, like a 2-minute walk away from the Avon Theater, a 20-minute walk away from the Festival Theater. It doesn't get better. Right now, we are here. We need to go, whoop, whoop, here. This is a big deal. I know I have to get to the theater, but there's Funkos. It's the Stratford bus. So if you don't want to do the drive, you can take a bus. Stratford Squirrel. Having lunch. So I have made pretty decent time. It's just about 20 after 1 right now. The matinee starts at 2, so I have like 40 minutes to explore this glorious area around the Festival Theater. But the first thing I have to do is pick up my tickets, because yes, I could have gotten them digitally, but what fun is that? I want paper tickets that I can lose and be stressed out about, so that's what we're gonna go pick up now. This is in the lobby of the Festival Theater, and it is a model of the brand new Tom Patterson Theater, which was just renovated, which I haven't had a chance to visit yet, but look how cool it is. This is a really cool statue or like installation art that they have just outside the Festival Theater, which is commemorating the original festival tent, which is what first started the festival. So, with half an hour to kill before the show, obviously, I have to go to the gift shop. Hey, the gift shop had some pretty amazing stuff. I'm probably gonna go back there after the show or before Chicago tonight, because like, they had the Crazy For You soundtrack for 25 cents. 25, like I guess it's because physical media is a dying medium, but I'm gonna take advantage of that. So good. I will say, the one part of the gift shop that was leaving something to be desired as far as I'm concerned were their t-shirt collections. And you know what I think they were missing? This. Okay, it's hard to show you. You know what shirt I'm wearing. It's intermission and I just spent $9 on a flourless brownie that's basically a giant brick of fudge, and it's amazing. If you like brownies, and if you don't like flour, you will like this. All right, so Hamlet just wrapped up. It's 5 o'clock. That gives me 3 hours before Chicago starts. So about 2.5 hours before I want to get back here, which means just enough time to drive into town, find dinner, and come on back. And let me just say, that production of Hamlet was freaking outstanding. It's the first Shakespeare production that I've seen since like all the 2020 madness. And I'm not sure if it's because it's my first time seeing Shakespeare performed live that it was so good, but that has to rank as, if not one of the best Hamlets I've ever seen, one of the best Shakespearean productions I've ever seen. But more on that later. Now, I go find food. While I'm getting food, the staff at the Festival Theatre are hard at work to do a complete changeover to get the space ready for tonight's performance of Chicago. They have less than 3 hours to tear down the Hamlet set and rebuild the Chicago set that we are going to be seeing later tonight. But they are not the only ones on a tight schedule. There's so much to see, do, and eat in Stratford, and I didn't have much time to do anything besides eating dinner, but I had to squeeze in a visit to the Rio Thompson candy store, as well as the former Pizza, which is now apparently a cat cafe. A notable improvement, in my humble opinion. Oh my gosh, it's a sleeping angel. It's a sleeping angel. Okay, my favorite thing about this at the cat cafe is that they're having a coloring contest, and the final category is 13 and up. If they were open right now, I would get a coloring page and I would enter. Dinner has been had. I made the foolish mistake, like it was such a noob mistake. I made the foolish mistake of not making a reservation. And don't be me. Don't make that mistake, because everything here on Ontario Street was full. So I did have to wait like 30 minutes to get a table, but it's fine. I do everything early. So now we still have an hour before the show, so we can leisurely make our way back to the Festival Theatre. Lo and behold, we are back at night. The beautiful twinkle lights are serving up some Walt Disney World Main Street USA magic. Not really, but I'll take what I can get. And let's go see Chicago. And of course, we have to say hello to Shakespeare. Just like that, our day of fun at Stratford has come to an end, but now it's time to go back home. Well, now it's time to drive for an hour and a half and then go home. I'm going to tell you all about these shows. The review is coming. All right, friends, we are back from a successful day of Stratfording. So you know what time it is. It is time for the Matt Reviews Stratford Theatre pieces. But no, before that, we're going to do a quick Matt Reviews Stratford Foods exclusively to this lovely butter tart. Now, as you may recall, our first stop of the day was in Shakespeare, which is this lovely little hamlet. I guess it's technically a hamlet, which you pass through on your way to Stratford. And like the really fun thing about Shakespeare is that everything is labeled Shakespeare blank. I kid you not, just driving through the city, it's Shakespeare everything. Like there's Shakespeare gas, Shakespeare pizza, but my personal favorite, obviously, because we went there, Shakespeare pies. Now, I only started going to Shakespeare pies because of the novelty, because I thought, well, Shakespeare pies, clearly I have to try them, but I kid you not, in all seriousness, Shakespeare pies make the best pies and baked goods I have ever had in my life. On this trip I got a pumpkin pie because it was Canadian Thanksgiving, but I also got a pack of butter tarts. I'm going to have one of those for you right here on the channel to review. I mean, just look at how beautiful this is. Actually, don't even look at how beautiful it is. I'm going to put this on the spinny thing that I use to display Funkos, just so you can see the beauty, the baked goodness beauty of this gorgeous butter tart. Now, just taking a look at this butter tart here, it looks like a pretty standard Canadian treat. You know, we have that classic butter tart filling. I did opt for the raisin butter tarts because people who say they don't like raisins are lying to themselves. And yeah, let's give it a taste. Yeah, it's so good. So oh, that bite had a raisin in it. Oh, so good. Well, yeah, it's good. It's good. Like, if you like butter, and if you like tarts, you will like this. Okay, next, let's take a look at what I got from the theater gift shop. The theater gift shop at Stratford, that's like Disney World for the theater / Shakespeare side of me. They've got a surplus of incredible books, movies, just everything revolving around Shakespeare, theater, all of that good stuff. What was kind of simultaneously amazing and sad about this trip to the theater store is that they had incredible things marked down very clearly to sell, and to me it just indicated, again, the death of physical media. But if physical media is dying, at the very least I get to exploit its death with great deals like this. First of all, I got this documentary, The Madness of King Richard, $5. Can you believe that? Normal retail value, $24.95. So I picked this up because this is very much, in my opinion, one of those things that is never going to go to any streaming service, and that was the type of media that I tried to make a point of picking up while I was in the theater store. It just made me so sad to see that all of these incredible DVDs and CDs were being marked to sell, and let's be honest, they're probably not going to restock any of them, and that would be fine if it was mainstream content that's going to be readily available on Netflix. None of this is going to be on Netflix. If we're lucky, maybe it'll go on CBC Gem, but like, CBC Gem, as far as I know, they don't do music. Speaking of music, 3 CDs. Now, first, the Stratford production of Crazy for You, $5. This was a priority to me for that exact same reason as Madness of King Richard. I don't think this is going to be on Spotify anytime soon. I knew this was my one and only chance to get what is probably the only Canadian cast recording of Crazy for You in the world. I mean, I didn't do the research. Maybe there's a recording from the late 80s, early 90s from the live event days. I don't know, but if there is, I'd prefer this one anyway. So, Crazy for You. Along that same line, the Stratford production of Carousel. Now, I did used to have this CD, but I think I lost it at some point when I was changing cars over. It doesn't matter. It was also $5. And for the exact same reason, I just love that there's a Canadian cast recording of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Carousel. I do feel like some of the performances on this cast album are hit and miss, but the orchestrations are top notch. This is the first album that truly made me fall in love with the music of Carousel, and I love it. If anyone else can pick this up, especially for $5, highly recommended. And one of the biggest surprises to me, I'm going to cover the price. Oh, you probably saw the price in the montage. Anyway, The original London recording of Crazy for You. 25 cents. 25 cents. And I mean, out of all this physical media that I picked up, this is probably the one thing that will be available to stream for the indefinite future, but still, a 25-cent CD, how can I not? You know, if I'm ever driving and I feel compelled to listen to people from London singing Gershwin pretending to be cowboys, like, that's worth 25 cents. Let's see what else I got. Okay, alright, this was actually a gift from my mom, who I brought to see Chicago with me. It is... Whoop, plaque art. It's a ship wheel. Now, I just want to, again, point out, my mom knows how to find a good bargain, and I thought I found some great deals, but hold on. This, originally priced at $19.95, $1. Ah! You know, maybe I could just, like, put it in a bathroom, because we all know bathrooms are the beach. Okay, and last but certainly not least, whoop! A shirt. A shirt that's like 2 sizes too big for me, but it was $5. How can you judge me? So this is from a production back in 2019 that I did not see of The Never-Ending Story. It says, I must save Fantastica from the nothing, The Never-Ending Story. If you've been watching my channel recently, I've spoken about how I've pretty well never seen The Never-Ending Story. I've never read the book. Like, I watched the movie once, I'm sure, as a kid, but like, The Never-Ending Story doesn't mean much to me, but it does mean enough for me to justify getting a $5 shirt. And going to Stratford, getting a shirt was always a major tradition for me, because as somebody who adores graphic t-shirts and somebody who adores theater, there aren't a lot of places, or there weren't a lot of places for me growing up and going through theater school where I could get fun, niche t-shirts that were centered around Shakespeare and Shakespeare's contemporaries and all of the theater pieces that I know and love. Luckily, we don't have that problem anymore, thanks to today's video sponsor, me. The Teacup for One t-shirt t-shop is now available on Etsy, featuring great designs inspired by theme parks, theater, and everything in between. You might have noticed I was sporting my lovely Is It Me? Am I the Drama? Shakespeare-inspired t-shirt on my Stratford trip. During this video, I'm also sporting a design inspired by some of my personal favorite fairy tales. You will notice the shopping list: cow, cape, hair, slipper. If these designs appeal to you, or if you want something that's more theme park aligned, I'm sure I've got something that'll catch your fancy. Check out the Teacup for One t-shirt t-shop on Etsy today. Link in the description down below. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual shows that I went to see. I did the classic Perfect Day at Stratford matinee evening show, very rushed dinner in between the two, and it was a double bill of my two favorite genres, Shakespeare and musicals, Hamlet and Chicago. It was, oh, they were so good. I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. They were amazing. But I'm gonna talk a little bit more in depth about why they were amazing, so here we go. The whole purpose of this trip was because my mom wanted to see Chicago. I thought that would be a fun way to spend Thanksgiving, and then I just noticed that there was a Hamlet matinee on the same day. And it's not that I didn't want to see Hamlet, but like, I've seen Hamlet at Stratford, and as good as Stratford productions always are, like, Hamlet at Stratford is always going to be Hamlet at Stratford, or so I thought. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that when I say Hamlet at Stratford is always going to be Hamlet at Stratford, Stratford is a repertory theater company, and so each season, every actor cycles between 2, and I think even in some years, 3 productions, and then they have a tendency to bring those actors back. So it's kind of, there's this nice consistency. When you go back season to season, you start to grow an audience relationship with certain performers that you know and love, and that kind of becomes a selling point, at least for some of the older subscribers especially. So then it starts to become a case of, okay, now let's put this actor that we all know and love into this role. Like Hamlet. So I saw Hamlet at the Stratford Festival a few years ago, I think it was 2015, starring festival favorite Jonathan Goad as Hamlet. I love Jonathan Goad. Jonathan Goad as Hamlet was everything I knew it was going to be. Good text work, solid production, and I've also noticed a lot of productions of Hamlet over the last 10 to 15 years, they all have a very similar look, like very sleek, very minimalist. There's a lot of black, like the set is usually just bare bones, black. Sometimes there's mirrors, and 95% of the time there's guns instead of swords. And like, this is the hot take that people aren't ready for. I think every contemporary production of Hamlet, like the one that fits into the mold I just described, owes a debt of gratitude to the Ethan Hawke Hamlet movie from 2000 that only I seem to enjoy. That movie is frickin' fantastic. Anyway, suffice it to say, I had no intention of seeing this production of Hamlet because, again, Hamlet at Stratford is Hamlet at Stratford. I paid to see it once a few years ago. If I'm going to put my money into something, I want it to be something I've never seen before. The reason I went to this Hamlet is because Lisa Alves, good friend of the Teacup, Lisa Alves from the Teacup for One movie club, told me that this production of Hamlet specifically was one of the greatest things that she's ever seen. I might be paraphrasing, sorry if I am, Lisa, but what I took away from Lisa's glowing review was that this production was worth seeing specifically because of the actor they had as Hamlet, and after having seen this production, I cannot agree more. Just let me take this moment to gush about Amaka Umeh as Hamlet. I could go into details, and I will give some details, but I'm just going to say it right now. Amaka Umeh is the best Hamlet that I've ever seen. And Amaka Umeh, like, the bar has been set for me for all subsequent and future Hamlets. Like, remember how I just said a few seconds ago, Hamlet at Stratford's always going to be Hamlet at Stratford. That's kind of a blanket statement, I feel, for Hamlet productions in general. Almost every Hamlet that I've seen, between live stage productions and the film adaptations, they're all variations of the same performance. I mean, maybe they're dressed in more contemporary clothes, maybe it's Kenneth Branagh, maybe it's Ethan Hawke, maybe it's Jonathan Goad, maybe it's Benedict Cumberbatch, I don't know. But like, all of those Hamlets, I watched those Hamlets and I've never had any connection with them. It's just been like I've been on the outside of a fish tank, watching somebody, watching a character, and watching a performer that's very intellectual, that almost to me feels inaccessible. And I know that is kind of how Hamlet works, but Amaka's take on Hamlet, there was just this level of vulnerability coupled with incredibly clear text work. Like, when I say text work, I mean the work that an actor is doing to clearly communicate the words on the page so that I, as an audience member, don't have to work too hard to understand what's happening. Like, Amaka's text work combined with the emotional quality of the performance, this was the first time I've seen a Hamlet that I felt I was connecting with, that I could see myself reflected back in. And it was magic. And it wasn't just Amaka's performance that made this production so good for me, even though that was a big part of it. It was that performance coupled with, I would say, the direction as well as the other performances around them. Just all in all, this was a take on Hamlet that gave me a reading of the text that I had never seen before. And maybe this is just me totally misinterpreting the production that I saw, because I have a tendency to do that. But what I took away from this production was, for the first time ever, watching a production of Hamlet, I was actually both sympathizing with Hamlet while questioning Hamlet's sanity. There was this beautiful balance where, like, I feel like most other productions of Hamlet, you just take at face value that yes, the ghost is real, yes, Hamlet is right, yes, Claudius is a murderer, ergo, I'm on Team Hamlet, take down Claudius, it's a tragedy because Hamlet dies at the end. That's not what I was getting from this production. And I mean, it's so weird that I'm saying I connected with and felt empathy for Amaka as Hamlet, while at the same time, I was questioning if I was actually believing Hamlet. I was questioning my own sanity watching this production, not knowing what was real and what wasn't real. And I think a big part of that has to do with the performances that were given by the Claudius as well as the Gertrude. Claudius in this production was played by festival favorite Graham Abbey. Gertrude was played by festival favorite baity. And like, much like Amaka as Hamlet, they were giving me performances of these characters unlike any that I've seen before, mostly because I didn't hate them. I sympathized with them. You go into Hamlet ready to hate Claudius. It was almost like when I was watching The Crown season, I don't know, the most recent one, 4 or 5, I don't know. When Charles showed up, I was ready to hate Charles. And that actor, like, he made me feel so much sympathy for poor Charles. Charles just wanted to do his production of Richard II. But this is the benefit I have discovered of caring even just a little bit about Claudius and Gertrude. Well, not even just Gertrude. We always kind of care about Gertrude. Caring about Claudius, all of a sudden, I wasn't just seeing evil uncle who killed his brother. I was seeing a man who potentially didn't kill his brother. A man whose brother was murdered. A man who maybe actually cared about Gertrude and maybe actually cared a little bit about Hamlet. And then the real tragedy of it was, yes, seeing how Hamlet was acting, especially in this production. Like, this production's Hamlet, Amaka was running around waving a gun in people's faces for a fair number of scenes before the gun was actually used. From anyone's perspective, if you're seeing that, especially in our contemporary world, a ton of red flags go up of this is somebody that could be a threat, not just to the family, but to everybody. And so from Claudius's perspective, I started to see how he was becoming the villain that Hamlet painted him as. And maybe I'm totally misinterpreting it. Maybe this production's intention was, yes, Claudius killed King Hamlet. But it's so much more interesting to me if that's the story. If Claudius starts out as someone who's completely innocent, but then just Hamlet's grief causes Hamlet to like do certain things that then like put up red flags for Claudius, thus pushing Claudius to actually become the murderer he never was. That is dynamic. That is fascinating. That is a real tragedy. And can I just say, for somebody who's been reading Hamlet for years and who has seen countless different productions of Hamlet, it takes an extra special production for me to think this deeply and for me to think in such a renewed way about such a familiar text. And that is the mark of a stellar production. And I'm so excited and so happy that this specific production is being recorded by the Stratford Festival. So even though it is closing in like a week or two, everyone watching this video will have a chance to go watch that production of Hamlet, and you need to. And now let's talk about Chicago. Okay, Chicago, kind of like Hamlet. It's a show, it's a piece that I know fairly well. I've seen the movie countless times. In fact, I blame the movie for convincing me to go get a film degree. I saw it in Edmonton once at a dinner theater. I've seen it on Broadway twice. You know, like Hamlet, it's very familiar territory. Now, unlike Stratford's production of Hamlet, their production of Chicago didn't have me reassessing my interpretation of the text and what the text has to say about life, death, family relationships, and mortality, but I mean, it's Chicago. None of that's there anyway. What it did deliver on was spectacle. The spectacle of this was outstanding. The show opened with Velma coming down from the ceiling like Nicole Kidman in Moulin Rouge. From that moment on, I knew that this was going to be an absolute treat, and it was. This production of Chicago was directed and choreographed by Donna Feore, and at this point, Donna Feore is the person for musicals at Stratford. I think she's been directing and choreographing shows there for, I want to say almost 20 years? I know that she was doing stuff back when I was in high school. That was almost 20 years ago. Huh. Anyway, other people have directed musicals at the festival over the past few years, but Donna Feore, she just, out of everyone, I feel like she has the greatest grasp of how to make a musical and dance numbers work in that space. Because just imagine, I'm sure it's hard enough to stage something in a thrust setting where you have to make sure that all audiences on all sides of the performance space are able to see the dramatic action, but doing that for choreography? Huh. So, Donna Feore choreography, always a pleasure to watch. And I think it's it's really cool because this production, from something I read a while ago actually, it might not even be legit, but I'm pretty sure this is one of the first professional productions of Chicago that's changed the choreography from the classic Bob Fosse style that's ingrained into the production. I think the Broadway revival kind of redefined how Chicago is thought of with staging. There are no costume changes, the cast just wear one outfit the entire show. It's sleek, it's minimalist, it's simplistic, and it's effective. I mean, I personally love the staging for the revival of Chicago, and I guess a lot of people do because now that Phantom has closed, it's on track to be the longest running production in Broadway history. Hope it makes it. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, this production at Stratford, what was so cool about it was that it was like having seen the revival on Broadway, again, twice, it was so cool seeing Chicago the musical on stage with full sets, full costume pieces. It was kind of taking the aesthetic that we got in the film and throwing it on stage for me with the original stage material. And much like Hamlet, I don't think there were any weak links in the cast for the production of Chicago. You know, everyone I felt was perfectly cast, and it is a show that is meant to showcase incredible voices and like outstanding dancers, and that's what we got. Every single role had their showcase moment. And I don't just want to go through the entire cast list and tell you this person was great, this person was great, this person was great. Just assume they were all great. But I want to take a moment to throw some like matte appreciation onto two performers that I feel probably don't get as much attention in the reviews because they're not like they're not the roles that are plastered on the side of the Stratford buses. The first was Steve Ross as Amos. At this point, like I was saying, Stratford has their festival favorite actors that come back more or less every season. Steve Ross is one of them, and Steve Ross is one of my personal favorites. He does Shakespeare, he does musicals, he does all of my favorite stuff, so he tends to be in shows that I go to see. And he was such an endearing Amos. I'll say the weak link of every live production I've seen of Chicago has always been Amos. And I mean, the standards for me are high, because I was introduced to Chicago through the movie. So in my mind, Amos has always been and will always be John C. Reilly. John C. Reilly just brought so much heart to that role, much needed heart, because everyone in Chicago is a horrible person. And you want to root for them, obviously, because the show is so much fun, but you need that heart. Amos is so important to just give it a little bit of ground, and that's what John C. Reilly did in the movie, and that's what I was missing when I saw that production on Broadway. When I saw Amos on Broadway, it felt to me like the actor was being directed to just be as pathetic as possible. Steve Ross gave me what I wanted to see, and what I think is integral to see from an Amos. I mean, in no way was he copying or paralleling John C. Reilly's performance, but still, the heart was there. The Amos heart was there. I didn't even write that down. I didn't even plan that. It came to me. Stroke of brilliance. The other performer that I want to shine a light on is Robert Markus as Mary Sunshine. If anyone's only familiar with the Chicago film, Mary Sunshine is the role that's played by Christine Baranski. She's the reporter, the blonde reporter, the sob sister for the Evening Star. I think that's the paper she works for. Well, in the stage production, Mary Sunshine is written to be a drag artist, because the entire conceit of the stage production is that you are watching a vaudeville show with different types of vaudevillian performances, and Mary Sunshine is a drag act. But the twist is that the show is written so that they don't reveal Mary Sunshine as a drag artist until the very end of the show, and then you just kind of backtrack and think, oh my gosh, this guy has the most incredible voice, because the stuff that Mary Sunshine sings, it's near operatic arias. And Robert Markus, I cannot stress enough that this is a human being who probably has one of the greatest voices on the planet, or at least on the planet that I've heard. And it's not even just that Robert Markus can sing high and can sing beautifully. He's an incredible performer, because he just fully embodied Mary Sunshine to a level that I didn't even see on Broadway when I saw the show. Everything in terms of his physicality and his nuances, he's the full package. I would say the one thing about Robert's performance as Mary Sunshine, and I can't classify this as a criticism, but he was almost too good. I've spoken to more than one person who saw the production of Chicago that didn't realize when the Mary Sunshine as drag artist reveal happened, who didn't realize that it was the same person that sang this Mary Sunshine material for the whole show. Everyone I've spoken to thought that they did some kind of bait and switch where they had an actual woman playing Mary Sunshine, and then they just swapped it out with Robert Markus in a wig. And I'm not sure if there's anything that could have been done directorially to have made that a little bit more clear. In fact, I think Donna Feore made some brilliant choices insofar as how she approached Mary Sunshine as a character, because Robert was actually the person who opened the show. He came out in this beautiful, sleek white suit and gave that introduction saying, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see a story of like murder, mayhem, deceit, whatever, all the things we hold near and dear to us. And right before he went off stage, he picked up a beautiful lady's coat and a set of pearls, and then counted in the band. It was like 5, 6, 7, 8. And clearly, if you don't know the show, you don't put those pieces together, but since I know the show, I thought that was just such a brilliant touch to even just kind of plant the seed, so that when Mary Sunshine does come out in full drag later, you realize, wait a second, that face looks familiar. And then maybe in the back of your mind, you're piecing it together thinking, is that the same guy who came out and took a strand of pearls off stage with him? Who knows? So I think Donna made some brilliant choices for leading into Mary Sunshine, but I don't know, I guess the reveal could have been staged in such a way to make it a little bit more clear, but truthfully, I think the root of the confusion is just that Robert Markus's voice is too good to be believed. Okay, friends, there you have it. My very quick review of the 2 productions I saw at Stratford. And with that, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup for One. Now, let me know in the comment section down below, have you ever seen a show at Stratford, and if so, which one? And if not, which of these productions do you think you would have preferred? Hamlet or Chicago? And if you want to be the first to know when I go on more theater adventures, or just when I'm sitting here talking about Disney, Shakespeare, cats, Funko Pops, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And if you haven't subscribed already, it is so flippin' easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me again today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and this has been the Teacup for One. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio.